on, guys? It's Gary Lee with Savage Multimedia Group and Podcasting Dangerous, and I have a very special guest today. I have Ryan Willams sitting here of IamRyanWilliams.com, formerly of Red Sun Rising.
How you doing, Gary?
I'm well. How are you, man?
I'm doing great, man. Cozy on this nice little couch fireplace environment.
Yeah, man. It's like a real college dorm room.
You know what? It's nicer though than a college dorm, but yeah, it's got that vibe.
Yeah, for sure, man.
Right next door to the gym, so I literally have my bag in the locker room next door, and I can walk out from here.
You can go work out. You got the bathroom down the hall.
I could move in here, maybe.
Maybe you should.
Yeah, I didn't see any beds or a kitchen yet.
So, guys, we're here with Ryan Willams of Savage Multimedia Group. He lives here now.
Yeah. Hi.
So, it's really cool of you to come and sit down and kind of talk about what's going on with you.
Yeah.
It's been a lot of changes. Before we get into those changes, I kind of want to, for anybody out there that is unfamiliar with Ryan, you're just seeing him for the first time, which you shouldn't. He's a Cleveland rock star, man, an Akron rock star. Akron rock star. But how did you get started in all of this?
Oh man, I was kind of born into a music family, not so many musicians per se, but just people that loved music, you know. And I was like 8 years old when I put my first Master of Puppets cassette in. I was into it. And my aunt was this local, she is still, Tracy Thomas. I don't know if you know her, but an incredible musician. She had an incredible band, a good run as a career, and she gave me my first guitar. My mom got it for me to get my grades up when I was in 8th grade, and that was it. I was off and running. And I think my first time on stage, she forced me on when I was like 13 or 14. I was so nervous, I turned my back to the crowd and played Helter Skelter.
Wow.
Yeah. And, man, I got hooked. And that was it. I fell in love with the songwriting process. I didn't, there was something different. I always loved being a guitar player, and I was a fan of guitar. But the first time anybody enjoyed something that I wrote and like kind of gave it back to me on stage, that was it.
So is it the process that you really like, or is it the feedback that you get from...
All of it.
Yeah?
I think, all of it. Sometimes the process isn't fun, you know, but I don't know. That seems to be where I planted my flag the most. Like, I knew I wasn't going to be Steve Vai or on the guitar or anything like that, right? But I always thought I could write a good song, and I think we just were never out of ideas either. Once we started the Red Sun Rising thing, I think we have something in the ballpark of like 60 or 80 published tunes.
Wow. 4 albums, right?
Yeah. There's other stuff too. There's obscure stuff. So there's like 4 that people will know about. 2 that were released mainstream and globally. So
that's awesome, man. You know, the Akron music scene is a pretty kind of eclectic music scene. Yeah. It's a lot different than even the Cleveland music scene.
Yeah.
How did you find yourself fitting into the Akron music scene here?
I didn't at first. When I started, this was like early 2000s, and it was a lot of kind of rundown clubs. In this, you do you remember early 2000s? Akron was kind of not. Yeah. You know, it was beat up.
We used to call it Crackrin. As Cleveland folks.
Yeah. Back in the Harry Buffalo days.
Yeah, for sure.
Stuff. And there weren't that many venues, and usually, the kind of the scam at each venue was get as many bands. It doesn't matter what they sound like together. That way they can bring as many of their friends to drink, right? So it was always us and like 11 bands that we made no sense playing with, but we just were thankful for the opportunity, I guess. And we didn't fit in it, but I would say around the time the Black Keys popped off.
Okay.
There was this really there was this cool scene wrapped a lot around Highland Square, which is where we lived at the time. And bands started supporting each other and started coming to each other's shows and setting up out-of-town shows with each other and communicating, and that was new for us. We didn't really have that. It was always this competition vibe, this weird atmosphere.
Where like everybody was like rivals.
Right. And once people started backing each other up and coming to each other's shows and doing all of that, the crowds grew and the fans grew, and it just evolved from there. And the Akron scene, then by the time I would say left, I don't want to say left, but by the time we were touring internationally or nationally, I thought it was great here. You could go anywhere and see a good show.
Oh, for sure.
Great musicians.
Yeah, there's people would be surprised of all the good, whether it's musicians or different types of entertainers that come out of Northeast Ohio.
I'll tell you what, when we were recording with Kevin Martin down in Nashville, this thing called Into Forever. It was a demo that kind of got us signed, right? And across the hall was like Brent Mason. It was Kenny Chesney's record. And I remember talking to some of the guys engineering, And one of the things they said was they were like, a lot of these, music school kids get dumped off here by the busload, but it seems to be certain towns that are producing the guys that are consecutive. And they brought up Akron. Once we settled from Akron, they said so many cats, like real cats, are coming down here from there, and they can play and they get gigs.
Yeah,
regularly. So
there's a lot of good stuff coming from here.
Remember taking pride in that, being part of that.
Do you still like to represent it when you're out there?
Akron?
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I always kind of envisioned coming back and doing something here. I mean, I can't tour forever.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't know, something here, some kind of business here. Yeah, I love it. I love Akron.
That's awesome. Have you always been like a hard rock kind of guy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I listen to everything now, but I was way more of an elitist when I was in high school. I wouldn't even consider certain things like,
Give me an example.
Like, oh my God, the Thong song came out when I was in high school, right?
Yeah.
Everybody in my grade, loved it. And you couldn't even get me to listen to it. And I was trying to give them, like, have you heard, this is Led Zeppelin, you got to listen to Led Zeppelin. Like, my dad listens to Led Zeppelin, that sort of thing.
Your dad knows something,
Right. I was so into rock then, and I was such a Metallica fan. And, yeah, I was kind of elitist in that way. Like,
are you
judgmental?
Were you elitist, judgmental, like Metallica guy? Like,
yes.
Are you a dude that's like after Justice, it's over?
No, actually, no, I'm not. In fact, people are gonna hate this, but Load and Reload are two of my favorite records.
Really?
Love them. Well, you got to think when they came out, I was 12.
That's
right.
true.
I didn't have time to. I didn't think about stuff like that.
Yeah.
I didn't have time for them to be this one thing
And then become another.
Well, because by the time I got into Master of Puppets, Inner Sandman was clobbering the radio. And as different as those albums are, to me, those Load records are just great 90s rock band music, and which was an awesome era. I would say I'm more of a 90s elitist guy in a way. That era I just love that era of music.
So are you like because I would just want to redefine, 'cause there's so many different types of 90s music elitists, right?
Yeah.
So like there's like the dude that's like,
I grew out of that though.
But still, I just want to hear like your background. Like, are you a dude that's like Silverchair is not a thing because it's on the radio, but were you a Pearl Jam dude? Like, where were you in the 90s stuff?
I kind of. Pearl Jam never got to that place. Like Creed was one of those bands that their first album, and I'm sorry, Mark.
Don't say it.
Sorry, Mark. I loved, and when they got really popular, I started to be the guy that's like, oh, Creed, you know what I mean? But I really do love Creed, and when their popular stuff, if you look back, was awesome.
Yeah. Here's the thing, I hate Creed. Their songs are catchy. I know all the words to all their songs.
Right. And
never owning a Creed album, I know.
And they're a killer band, and they're really nice guys. So.
Hi, Scott.
Yeah, I don't know Scott.
I don't know him either. I just seen him some of the crazy stuff he's done on.
Yeah.
The last couple of years.
Yeah, we've done some shows. I never met him. I met his band. They were really nice. So.
Who's like the have you played with anybody where you can't believe you are going to share a stage with this band?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Many times. Yeah. Mark Tremonti was one of the first guys, though. Funny story. We had just gotten a record deal. Or no, I'm sorry. We had just finished the record. But we were like show one, tour one. And it was Seether, Tremonti, and us. And we had went and done this acoustic thing on the radio at this big station in Cincinnati, which was still, a lot of this was pretty new to us. And we were just kind of happy to be there. And I remember Mark comes out of his bus, and Tyler, the guitar player, and I at the time, oh my God, it's Mark Tremonti. And we're like, what do we say? Which would be cool. We're going to be, what's kind of always our policy. And he walked right up and said, hey, I'm Mark. And literally walking into the building, I think we had done one show with them. Walking down the stairs, he got us a Marshall endorsement and like a Vox Korg endorsement on the staircase on the way to the stage.
No kidding.
Yeah. Hey, these guys are good. You want them. And he hooked us up with this guy, and next thing you know, we got free shirts and guitars, and that's just who he was. And he's somebody I like to run into every once in a while. Great guy.
That's awesome.
But he was one of those, and then like this past I would say festival season 2018, we had a lot of Alice in Chains and Tool, and that was really awesome.
That's got to be really cool to
System of a Down in Europe. We did Tour on Arena in Poland, sold out, and that was one of the most incredible experiences of my life.
Do you have any, I want to keep things positive, but do you have any bands that you were just let down? Like, man, I love this guy, and then it turned out...
Yeah.
You don't have to name names, but...
It happens.
Yeah.
And you know what? I was bummed out. There was a few things. And good bands are good bands, and I think you could almost pick out who they are from the beginning. One of the things that disappointed me coming into was how many bands relied so heavily on pre-recorded music. That bummed me out at first with certain projects. And then, you run into a few guys that or they buy their own hype. Either that or they're just sick of it. And we tried to kind of keep this policy. If we weren't invited into your world, we weren't coming into it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that seemed to serve us well. We got to do some cool stuff and hang with some pretty cool people, but I tried not to force my way in.
Yeah.
I always thought that was a weird way to behave.
That's
people
awesome.
People do it.
For sure.
So.
Yeah, that's awesome. How did you guys make it out of Akron? So you guys, you're helping to build the scene in like what, the mid 2000s, late.
This is, I would say 2010. We had released 2 albums that year,
Mm-hmm.
and we had done 1,500 people at the Civic on our own. But we couldn't go 20 minutes in any other direction, except for maybe Youngstown or something, Cleveland.
Mm-hmm.
But if we left the state, there was nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And we decided to take it upon ourselves because we were talking to all these industry people, but it seemed like at that time the music industry was in this weird trying to figure out streaming thing, and it didn't seem like anybody was taking risks, and the money wasn't the same, and they were trying to figure that out. So I remember Mike and I would get up at 6 a.m. every morning for 3 months straight, and we would book our own tours and call. And we actually pretended to be other people.
Really?
Because people don't want to hear you book your own band. So I was Freddie Shepard. That was my booking agent name. I had a different email and everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
What was your inspiration for the Freddie Shepard name? Was there any?
My grandfather.
Yeah.
His name. Yeah.
That's really
Frederick
cool.
Shepard. Yeah. That's also my middle name is Frederick, but that's what we did. He did his grandfather. I did mine. And they had passed, and we used their names to book shows. And we booked a whole Red Sun Rising tour, and we came back and kept track of everything. And the people that were on the fence, we said, look, we went out and made money on our own.
Yeah.
So.
And you were able just to...
Yeah, we crashed on people's couches. Well, I don't think we had a hotel, but maybe for South by Southwest.
Do you remember like when things started to change for you guys?
Well, immediately once we did this. Yeah, so we signed and we went on tour with Pop Evil. And that was kind of cool. We kind of got a taste of the industry, following a bus around and opening for a band of that caliber and that size. And then the 3 months we spent recording with Bob Marlette in Los Angeles that really changed my life. I mean, that experience alone, being these guys that worked at a music store in Akron, and next thing you know, the record label's got an Airbnb out in Sherman Oaks, and we're in the studio every day just writing and recording, and it was just it was very liberating, and it felt like we had arrived, but the pressure was on. Somehow we were cockier than now. Even we just thought we knew we had the stuff.
Yeah.
And then when the first single went #1 on Billboard, I remember like my body being cold, like I was like, so it was like electricity. Everybody in the band was just kind of stunned. We were told that couldn't happen. So.
Do you have does Ryan now have any advice that he would give to Ryan in 2012 when all this is happening?
Enjoy the ride. Chill out. Take a deep breath. The negative stuff's going to not be so memorable. And just move through it. That's what I would tell him.
Right on, man.
Focus. Yeah.
Right on. And so this past weekend, there was a big announcement. Red Sun Rising is going to be taking a hiatus.
Yeah.
And however, you got some other awesome stuff going on, don't you?
Yeah. So, Red Sun Rising is going to be, indefinite hiatus. So we don't know how long it's going to be, but it's going to be a while at least. And, I said earlier we were never out of music, and I think that was also because everybody in the band liked to write. And that's one of the things. Everybody's branching out and doing their own thing. And, the road takes a toll on everybody, and we've been doing this for so long, and I think it was time for a change.
So, 15, 16 years?
Yeah, 15 or 16 years we've been doing Red Sun Rising. At least Mike and I have.
Yeah.
And, it's time to move on. And and we hated to drop that on the fans and everything because we love them more than we wouldn't be anywhere if it weren't for them.
For sure.
Every single second I was ever on stage was just amazing. And
now, this is an opportunity for you guys to go out and divide and conquer, though.
Well, divide and conquer, and it gives me a chance to put my own feelers out there and do this in a different way on my own. I've always wanted to produce records. I'm starting to get offers to do that, and I've got music, and it's kind of refreshing to mix it up.
Does the bug to produce come from the same love for the writing process?
Yeah, I think. Yeah, the part I enjoy the most. I don't think it's the coming up with the ideas. I think it's like once there's something, it's how do I turn that into the final presentation. That's where I feel like I shine. I think, but I'm happiest there. I don't know why. I love it. That's where, you know, we start to cut things and move things around, and I don't know. And I always ended up hitting it off with every producer we worked with. We always became buds. So
that's awesome. Now, we talked about like new beginnings, right? Going out and doing those sorts of things. I don't actually know you as Ryan Willams from Red Sun Rising. I know you as Ryan Willams, who
the guy who gets his ass kicked.
The guy gets his ass kicked over next door at Aries
Right.
Combat.
Yeah.
How did mixed martial arts come into your life?
Wow. So I guess I was a fan of it enough to where, like, at least I was kind of a fair weather hype fan of whatever, like a McGregor fight. I would watch it, or John Jones or something. But it was always something I was attracted to and wanted to do, but I always thought I was either too old or, like, you know, I don't know. It's something I didn't think I could commit to it. And I knew I had this time. I was going to be home for a year. And so almost a year ago today, I walked in here and I started talking to Dave Graff, of course, who he's part of the Savage MMG and owns Aries Combat. And we were both going through a lot of changes. I had a kid on the way, and I don't know. I wanted to harden up. I needed to be a little tougher for everybody in my life, including myself. And he saw that, I think, and we hit it off. And I started with private lessons. Then I started classes. Then I started to make friends. Next thing you know, I'm in here 5-6 days a week. So
you are always in here.
I love it here.
You're in here sometimes more than the guys that actually go out and fight.
I know. Well, those guys don't need as much work. I love it. It's a never-ending chess match with yourself in a way. Like jiu-jitsu and striking, and you can always get a little bit better. And there's these little victories every time that you can take home with you. And I'll say another thing about it is just like I meditate, right? I love meditation. I love exercise. But there's something about sparring that you have to be so there because you're going to get hit. Yeah. That when I leave this place, I feel like 20 pounds has been lifted off my back.
Really?
Yeah, I feel light. Even as sore as I am, and like a bloody lip. I bit a piece of my tongue off last month and had to go to the hospital. I still feel just refreshed and clean, and I have a different outlook when I leave here. I'm happier. Like the fights earlier in the day or the struggles, I can kind of look back and go, I got this, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
It's weird. It gives you that. I think that's what I like about the fighting stuff so much.
Have you like sustained any injuries fighting so far?
Yeah. And these guys, the guys who are good in here are pretty gentle for the most part with me, because otherwise, you know, there's a few guys in here that could just take me apart right away. But I'm toughening up, and I was rolling with one of the better jiu-jitsu guys, Chili Wolf, and I didn't have my mouthpiece in, and I bit a piece of my tongue off, and I didn't know how bad it was, right? So I had I spent about 4 days dealing with the pain, and I woke up one morning, and I couldn't. My tongue was like as big as the
This is like
whole
last
mouth.
week?
Like it was like 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
And it was awful pain. It was throbbing. It was bleeding. It was infected, right? So I got to the hospital, and they were like, if you would have come on day one, we could have sewn it. But now you're going to have to take a bunch of antibiotics and let it just kind of fuse back to itself, which it did. Yeah. But I had a lisp for 3 weeks, and I was in tons of pain. It was awful, terrible, like tons of antibiotics. I was still coming in, though. But I forgot about you. The weird thing about the lisp was I forgot I had it. And I remember being at the rec center. So sometimes I'll go over there and lift if it's really early. And I was like, you know, having one of those days where you're feeling yourself a little bit. I'm kind of like popping, okay, you know, getting in better shape.
I don't really have those days, but I know that people do.
Well, sometimes, you know, you get your hair just right. I was having one of those days, and I was kind of done lifting, and I wanted to check out the swimming schedule. I'll never forget this for my kid. I wanted to teach him how to swim. And I kind of walk up, and I totally forget. And I go up to the girl, and I'm like, excuse me, when is your swimming schedule? You know, yeah. She looked at me like I was crazy. It was, you know what I mean? Because my tongue was just like, there's like drool coming. I just started to forget what my mouth looked like at the time. You know,
it's like almost going out after dental work.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was like. Yeah.
So like, you know, I imagine that because you said this was something that you were interested in even before you started about a year ago. I imagine that probably the management that you had at the time wouldn't be too happy with you fighting.
No, definitely. So I wasn't even allowed to play basketball anymore. I used to. That was like my thing before fighting. I guess I started playing competitively like 4 or 5 days a week.
Now, what does that mean competitively?
There was a game. There was a pickup game where everybody could play. Everybody was pretty good. It was ex-college guys and stuff, ex-high school players, and it was a tough game. Yeah. And I was starting to get my I don't know, as good as I ever was. I was starting to get it back, and I remember this one day, I was winning all day. My team was winning, and I had told the management and all that, I'm like, I'm not going to get an injury playing basketball that I can't perform a show.
Yeah.
So sure enough, I go for a rebound, and this guy goes for it, and his wrist hits me between these two fingers, and I'm like, oh man, ow. You know, I'm like, are you okay? And he said, yeah, are you okay? And I said, yeah, and I opened my hand, and my finger fell off. Like, it fell down to the side of my wrist, and just blood everywhere. And the whole gym, all the guys, oh, and they picked me up and carried me out front, and there were EMTs waiting there. And even the guy was, like, taken back by it. Just popped my hand open. You see the scar?
Yeah.
Like a grape, and my finger was off. And I'm a guitarist for a living.
Yeah.
And the worst part about it was the next night we were opening for Chevelle up at the House of Blues. And it was funny. Our singer at the time, Mike, he didn't go to this gym, and I'm sitting there with the EMTs, and then just there he was all of a sudden. That was the day he decided he wanted to try this place out. Mm-hmm. And I said, oh, you're not going to work out. You're taking me to the hospital. So I had to play. What I figured out I could do was once it was sewn, I wasn't allowed to move the fingers, so I took a bunch of hair ties, and I wrapped them around these fingers so they wouldn't budge.
Yeah.
And I played the whole show that way. And I did a pretty good job.
Do you think anybody noticed a difference out there?
I don't think so. I think I had it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I was actually really proud of myself at the end of the day. I think I have a video of that show still. I'll never forget that show.
Dude, that's more hardcore than like pretty much any athlete or even fighter.
Well,
that's pretty hardcore, man.
It was so important to us. I mean, we were on the way up. We weren't. And opening for Chevelle at that time was a big deal. And
that's hard, man.
I wanted to put on the best possible show I could, and that's how we always lived it. I would say one of the things I would tell myself too, is to keep that mentality, which we did. Was every show was the best show. Had to be the best show we ever played. And that's any band that's listening to that. If you can treat it like that, then it means A, you really love what you're doing, but B, it's onward and upward because you're going to learn and grow too.
Yeah, for sure. So like, well, with what you have coming up next, do you already have ideas in mind as far as like what this new music is going to sound like?
Yeah, it's kind of already written.
Yeah,
so
nice.
You
have like a whole album written right now?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I've been writing a lot, and last month finally started putting the pieces together. I knew who was going to produce it, but I didn't know who was going to play it with me, right? Because I've been programming every instrument that I couldn't play well, and it's just started to fall together for whatever reason last month, and I had a really great session a couple weeks ago, and it was like, okay, we're pulling the trigger. Let's do it.
Yeah.
Because I debated. It's maybe I'll write for other people. Try to I would write for commercials or something. I did once. Folgers.
Really?
Yeah, we placed.
Can you sing it?
Third. Oh my God. Yeah, the hook was. So the Folgers wanted a new song, and I ended up placing like second or something. I got a big gift basket with all these coffees and cups, but I didn't win the whole thing. But my hook was. I've got a handle on it, yeah, you've got a handle on it. Let Folgers get a handle on your the best part of waking up. So I wrote this whole thing.
That's awesome.
Thanks. And I was years ago. And anyway, so stuff like that.
Yeah.
And but man, I haven't been on stage in a year, and that's the bug. And that place, that's one of the happiest places I have in the world is stepping out on that stage and playing. So
is it the playing? Is it the interaction with the fans? Is it all of it?
All of it, and especially if the fans are interactive. And we were lucky. We still do. They're still great.
Yeah.
Even with this announcement, it reminded me. I've been away from them for a little bit. It just reminded me how many people bonded with each other, but we had bonded with over the years, and different families we had touched, and even seeing kids grow up as fans is really cool. And I miss them, but that energy they give you on stage is it's lightning in a bottle. I don't know what else to tell you. I seriously almost black out when we play. I love it so much. Yeah.
Yeah, you get all that adrenaline and
especially once we got experience, we learned how to deal and think because something always goes wrong, right?
For sure.
And we used to let that bother us, and we started to learn how to just handle it quickly, and that was great because most of the shows, I have no complaints from shows.
Do you have anybody? So as you're putting this project together, is there do you have a dream list of like these are the guys if in a perfect world, dead or alive, who would be in this new project with you?
God, I don't know. the singer, maybe Maynard Keenan,
Okay.
or Ed Kowalczyk,
Okay.
Robert Plant, David Gilmour on guitar with me, or Hendrix,
Okay.
Josh Freese or Danny Carey on drums, or
Okay.
John Bonham,
Okay.
and then bass, maybe like Flea or I don't know. Yeah, that would
Just from like what
cool
you've
band,
picked,
right?
it
Right.
sounds awesome.
be a pretty cool band. Again,
Yeah.
90s, right?
Oh, for sure.
I'm back in the 90s.
For sure. But even like when in the 90s where they were sounding a little bit like the 70s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Except for the guitar players, I went farther back. But there's
Yeah.
so many. That list could go forever.
But you went trippy though. Like Pink Floyd is.
Well, I think David Gilmour, if I had to pick, might be my favorite guitar songwriter as far as writing leads.
Mhm.
I just think he mastered it. You know, he accents the vocal. He makes it make sense to the song. It speaks. His are so good that people can sing them as well as they can sing the song, and it doesn't take away from anything.
Yeah.
It builds and it adds to it, and you forget that you're in the song, and once you're back, you're back. He is maybe the master. Also, he's one of those guys that I don't care who you are, if you cover him, it never quite sounds the same.
For sure.
Some guys you can mimic. So
Mhm.
that guy's not one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What about from a production standpoint? Is there anybody like dead or alive where you're like, man, if I could have
As a
gotten
producer?
as a producer, if I could get my hands on them, or if
Dr.
I
Dre.
could have, yeah,
Oh, I would love to collaborate. So I told you, I think because I was such an elitist younger, that when I opened the floodgates to hip hop and stuff like that, I opened them, and we were so in the rock scene all the time in the rock world. I usually wasn't listening to it when I was back on the bus anymore. I mean, unless some of my favorites came out or somebody was like, "You got to check these cats out." I was kind of opening up this door that everybody had already had open for themselves,
Yeah.
but I was too stubborn to listen to it. And I remember like. And it wasn't just me; it was the other bands too. We would talk about it. I remember having this long Amy Winehouse discussion, and with the Shinedown guys, and just stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just like they're listening to that too when they go to their bunk, So, but Dr. Dre would be a killer producer. I would love to do a song with him,
nice.
and I would try to combine the sounds.
That'd be awesome. Is there anybody else out there that you would like
Producer?
is that you would like to produce to like change their sound?
Oh,
Not necessarily change their sound, but like you listen to something, you're like, man,
I would produce them.
Yeah, you would produce them.
Oh man, nobody popular. I don't want to say that.
Yeah.
That's like I feel like it would be like a cunty thing to say.
Would it really? Okay.
Yeah, like, I want to produce your band. Like kind of
Yeah.
like I don't know. I would love to produce a band that has all the moving parts and just are kind of in limbo and aren't sure what to do next. I don't know. Producing a band that's already got it would be cool. I would totally be open to that, and I would love it. And I got some offers to co-write, which is in a way kind of the same job. If you have a good engineer, it's a very similar job. So I'm looking forward to that. But if there's bands that are out there doing it and hustling and just grinding away, and they're just kind of frustrated, they're not sure what's taking them there, I would love to take that band on because I've been
awesome.
that band.
For sure. And
Yeah.
you struggled through it, and
And I want to. Yeah, if they want it that bad, then they got to just be willing to listen and open up, and I think I could help.
Do you think it's you guys got signed and made it at a really unique time, I think, in music, where it was you didn't necessarily have to be an LA band or a Nashville band.
Yeah,
to
that was
to do
another
it.
thing. You're right, and that was always impressed upon us. We needed to leave Akron and go be in Nashville and leave, and that was my big fight. And I was like, look, we're gonna go there and be nothing. We are the big fish here. The Black Keys are gone.
Yeah.
This is our turf now. This is our town, and let's make noise here. And we did that. Worked out for us. In fact, the funny thing about that is by the time we were doing the big festival circuits, if you were to pull up one of those schedules, like 40% of the bands would be from Ohio. I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
I could name them right now.
Name them.
You want to? Okay. Starset, Ohio. Beartooth, Ohio. See, I dug myself a hole here. There's so many. Hold on. Wellesley Arms. God, maybe it was just the time we were going. What's that band? What's that metal band? Anyway, look it up. Google it. I don't have to name them all.
Google that
I
metal
gave you
band
4.
from Ohio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. We toured with them once.
If you're in Cleveland, they think that if you say metal band, the only one that exists is Mushroom Head.
Yeah. That's funny. I hear that a lot. People always ask me that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, you know Mushroom
You're
Head?
from Ohio?
Mushroom Head?
Mushroom Head.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course, Mushroom Head.
Yeah. Were they on that? Were they? Have you ever played a festival with them?
I met those dudes a couple times. I think I did a show with them like real long time ago with a band called Hideaway I used to be in, but no, I never ran across them anywhere.
I was an intern a real long time ago at 92.3 Extreme.
Dude, yeah, I love that. Pat, the producer.
Yeah, I remember him.
That was our first radio. The guy first guy to ever play a song of ours on the radio.
Really?
Yeah.
Right on. I worked on the Underground with Foz.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
On Sunday nights,
Right on.
and we had Mushroom Head on one time, and I'd only seen Mushroom Head and like looking like Mushroom Head,
Yeah.
and they came in, dude, with like crew cuts, and like they looked like businessmen.
Yeah.
And
They were by
well,
then.
they were by then, and I
Yeah.
was so shocked.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know a lot of their story. I know that band had. I think they tried to stay independent as long as humanly possible.
Yeah.
Which I don't know. They might have been in the wrong time to do that. They were in the money era stuff.
Yeah.
You know, it's different now. At least from what I'm told. You know, I'll never forget being on tour with Three Doors Down, who are amazing guys, by the way. The crew, everybody. But I was outside with the guitar player, and we were opening. We had the #1 song in the country, I believe, at the time, and we were touring with them. And we were in a Sprinter doing theaters with them. And he was like, "Man, our first #1, we were all millionaires. We all had our own bus, and we're playing to 30,000 people." And he's like, "Times have changed."
They sure have.
I remember laughing about it, and then I'm like, never forget him saying that, because then my stomach sank. You know, millionaires. You
Yeah.
know. We were eating fast food and living in a Sprinter and peeing in bottles.
Well, one of the cool things about like staying Ohio based is that like it doesn't take as much to live comfortably in Ohio that necessarily it does
That is true.
for probably where he was living and doing what he was doing.
No, those dudes stayed in the country. I think they're all around Nashville.
Are they?
But yeah, those are real country boys, real deal. You know, gun toting, truck driving country boys. But they're the nicest dudes on the planet.
Did you call him Superman?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Our guys went out and covered that one night at a bar, and they loved it.
Did they?
Yeah, it was. But we hit it off like crazy. I still talk to half their crew on a regular basis.
That's awesome.
And the guitar player sometimes.
They used to play it all the time at Geauga Lake.
That song is everywhere.
Yeah, dude. When that song came out, it seemed
That
like
album.
Yeah. Every time I was on a ride, that song came on.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely that, and then the 6 Feet Under song.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were huge.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, thank you very much for coming in, Ryan.
Hey, thanks for having me.
This has been awesome, man. I'm really excited to see what the future holds for you.
I am too.
I can't wait to hear that music that you're going to be putting out.
Thank you.
It's
You'll be some of the first to hear it. I mean, I'll be next door, I'm sure, training, and when I have something, I'll bring it in. I hope you guys like it, and then I hope we can do this again.
I can't wait, man. We definitely will. If people want to check you out, I am RyanWilliams.com.
I am RyanWilliams.com. That'll be the receptacle of all the social medias and information. And if you want to hit me up for as a producer or even as a teacher, I'm teaching on the side now, Skype lessons and things like that. You could do that.
Have you done Skype lessons yet?
Yeah, sure.
What are they like? How are they different from?
It's different. When the one thing I don't like about them is it's harder to critique timing and stuff like that. Every once in a while there's latency, but I feel like it's been long enough since I've done it. Technology's got to have kept caught up to the guitar lesson, right?
For sure.
So, yeah, and then you can find me on all my social media stuff. And if you're patient, hopefully by the early summer is my goal for releasing this record. And I think everyone's going to dig it.
And one of the cool things, if you go to I'mRyanWilliams.com, there's a big thing for a mailing list there. So if you want to get updates on what's going on with Ryan, just go ahead and sign up there on the website, man.
Yep.
It's awesome. Thank you very much for coming out, man.
Good to see you.
Yeah,
Thanks
you too.
for having me.
Thank you, man.